Broncos, Sammy, some big stories in the Courier Mail today. Peter Bedell, I know the players are now revolting, we're hearing, and some of the quotes, and he's generally very accurate, well, he is very accurate, Peter Bedell, they're in serious trouble. Players are now coming out to say, particularly senior players, that they can't communicate with Kevy, that he's awkward, that a lot of people are unhappy. I feel for him because he's obviously going through a process now where he's having to tell players they're not wanted, which is going to create animosity. It's just a huge mess.
And I think that is the hardest thing at the moment, is he is shaking up people's careers right now and telling them that they're actually not wanted at the Brisbane Broncos. And that's a tough conversation to have. And I don't know if it's a knee-jerk reaction for some of the players that have been asked to, look elsewhere and maybe move on. I really feel for Kevy right at this point in time. He's trying to secure a list that he thinks can really go forward and be successful, because he's a proud Broncos man, and he wants the Broncos to be the Broncos that he remembers and that a lot of people remember as well. So, tough times for Kevy. And to be honest, there's going to be tough times going forward as well. We just need to stick by Kevy and the Broncos.
Don't forget, he's never coached at NRL level before this year as well. So, that's even tougher. He's got nothing to work off. He's got nothing to compare to apart from his days as a player at the club, which, I guess is something. But he's got so much going on as well. A couple of staff dismissed this week, Peter Nolan, who's the head of football, and Andrew Kroll, who's the high performance chief, and that. So there are changes going on. 7 changes in the halves this year, in twice as many of those games. Albert Kelly coming in, hadn't played in the NRL. Carmichael Hunt coming back. So there's a lot happening up there, and it's interesting, you say the players are revolting. Well, the way they're playing is revolting, and that comes back onto the players.
Absolutely. So players are now leaking to the media, obviously. I don't know what the solution is for him. Tavita Pangai Jr., take a listen to Kevy speaking.
I'm on contract for this year, next year, but they got me in on my day off and told me that I'm free to look elsewhere. So, players have got to be held accountable for the results that we've been tossing up. So,
where do you see your future?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I thought I was on contract, but contracts don't mean much these days. So I've got to cop it on the chin and get my manager to do his job. And
no real reason why Tavita. It's just we've got to restructure our roster, and that's what we have to do. So not everyone can stay. So that's why.
Now, Matt Lodge still has a few years to go on his contract as well. He was asked afterwards by media whether he would go to the Warriors straight away, whether that would be his final ever game, and he said, I don't know, it changes every week, ask Kevy. I mean, it's just...
Well, we're not...
pathetic.
We're not on the inside, so we're only getting the external stuff, and that's difficult. I guess the one thing, and that's only a small excerpt of what Kevin had to say, but to come out and say that no real reason it's Tavita. Well, there's got to be a reason there, and I guess, you don't want to reveal that anyway, but because he's getting asked the same questions all the time. But there's a lot of relationships that somehow they've got to mend up there, and, but to me the bottom line is still the players have to take responsibility for what they do for every 80 minutes that they're involved in, and until they do that, then no chance of going anywhere. Okay,
we can't run our own lives, let alone anyone else's. I don't know.
Courier Mail this morning, an inside look, I suppose, at what is happening at the Brisbane Broncos, and some of the players' claims. Kevin Walters awkward with his communication, vague and inconsistent with his messaging, and fails to give feedback. With what's going on up there, what effect can this have? What can be the ramifications of what we've read about this morning?
Well, I think it shows that Kevy's under immense pressure, Sterlo. And look, I mean, unless things turn around, I could see Kevy going at the end of the year, to be honest. I think he's under that much pressure. And I think things are going so badly. Part of the reason for getting Kevy or appointing Kevy was to silence a lot of the criticism, because they thought Kevy would win over supporters, he'd win over the old boys, and he'd probably win over the media. But he's already lost the media to a large extent. We've seen that today. And we know how vicious they can be up there, and how once they turn on you, we saw it with Anthony Seibold, the media up there turned on him, and life became just impossible. That's starting to happen with Kevy. I think Kevy, the next month is crucial for Kevy. He needs to get things right off the field, because I think it's obvious they believe he hasn't got things right off the field in terms of his assistants and coaching staff and the footy department. They're going to give Kevy a chance to turn that around. If Kevy can't turn it around and then have an impact on the field, I can't see Kevy being there next year.
Surely this is on, that said, don't worry about the media reaction to it all. Surely this is on that board. Surely this is on Carl Morris. They're the ones who shafted Wayne Bennett, pushed him out the door, bring in Anthony Seibold, shafted him and had to pay him out. Now they brought in Kevin Walters to save their own ass because they didn't want to be copping criticism from the old boys. And now Kevin Walters the one under pressure when most of us knew that he was probably not the right person for the job in that circumstance. Like, when is that board accountable for the problems that have happened at the Broncos on their watch?
And one of the big issues going forward is as we see this clean out of the Broncos to try and correct things, we hear of Pangai Jr. being let go, Matt Lodge being let go. We've already seen Andrew McCulloch being let go, Jack Bird let go. The problem, the Broncos' issue is nothing's going to get fixed as far as their salary cap is concerned, because guess what? They're already paying for half of Jack Bird's wage. They're already paying for half of McCulloch's wage. They're going to chip in for Pangai Jr.'s wage. This is not a fast fix.
No.
And Webby's right. Those issues, the decisions being made as far as their cap is concerned and letting players go, it's going to impact them going forward, at least until next season. And the next coach, let's say Kevy isn't there next year, the next coach will have the exact same stringent ties around their cap as well.
I would say this about the board. The board isn't responsible for the day-to-day running of a football club. That's the football management, the executive management. And they've made poor decisions on that front.
But ultimately,
the board's responsibility is to run the footy club, Webby. The board's responsibility is to make sure it's governed properly.
To run the club.
No, that's the CEO's responsibility to run a club on a daily basis.
But what? So the board isn't responsible for at the end of the day, what happens with the club? What are you talking about?
Well, they're not. They're
the board, Brady. They don't make decisions. They're the board.
They don't make decisions about player recruitment.
They make the decision about the coach.
Well, they make the decision about appointing the coach. Yes. Yeah, and ultimately, if they've made the wrong decision with Kevy...
So they fired two blanks with the coach and they're not responsible? What are you talking about?
I'm saying they're not responsible for the day-to-day running of the club, for the salary cap, for signing players.
Keep your wig on. It's okay.
And the person who is responsible for that, to a large extent, was the head of football, and the head of football is now gone.
How can the board not be responsible where the buck stops with them? Does it not?
I tell you who's responsible right now for the performance of the team. It's Kevy Walters.
And the players.
Yeah, but Pete... The Broncos have gone through about 6 or 7 halves combinations this year.
No, I understand.
And back in pre-season, they didn't know who their halves were.
Yeah, I'm going to be very simplistic here in that, but once those players cross that white line, their responsibility is play to the best of their ability, and I'm not quite sure whether we've seen that.
They're chopping and changing the team every single week.
I understand
the head coach does
but you can only be responsible for your own performance, and that is still lacking across the board. Talk about individuals. Pangai Jr., we heard him earlier on the show say that he didn't want to leave, but he's been told that he can seek employment elsewhere. Is that the kind of treatment that he
I think it's very rude of them to contact him on his day off. Yeah. So that was a poor...
Well, he did make that point, yeah.
If he didn't want to leave, why did he meet with the West Tigers a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
Ready?
Well, this is the root of the problem, right? Because they've shown Tavita a lot of support over a lot of... Tavita Cook was in trouble at the end of last year. The club stood by him, got him mentors, honoured his contract. Then they read a story about a month ago that he met with the West Tigers. Now, Tavita denied that, and the club publicly, to silence all the talk around that, said Tavita's told us he didn't meet with them. Privately, they believe he did meet with the West Tigers, and they know he met with the West Tigers. So it's one thing for Tavita to come out and say, I didn't want to go, but the club... Their understanding is he met with the West Tigers. If he didn't want to go, why did he meet with the West Tigers?
It's a great shame I think he embodies what's happened with the Broncos. It's the great shame of Tavita Pangai Jr. that in early 2018 he was a gun. He was probably the most feared back rower in the game. And now he was. He certainly was.
Once a month he was.
He was pretty strong in early 2008, end of 17, early 18. He was a gun. The Broncos were considered by some as a premiership favourite.
Ability and talent has never been in question.
Not at all.
No. You know what the dismissal of Pangai, Fafita, Reece Walsh. Imagine being a current player at the Broncos, looking over your shoulder. I just think, as far as culture is concerned, look, a Payne Haas. You tell me one reason why Payne Haas sticks around other than financial. Other than financial.
He did more money elsewhere, Payne Haas. Yeah, they signed him 2 years ago.
All his mates.
He's actually on less than he should be on.
All his mates are getting tapped on the shoulder. Why stick around on a club that's perennial losers? There's no rainbow. There's nothing positive happening at the Broncos in the next 12 months.
There's no rainbow.
Pot of gold. There's no pot of gold.
There's no pot of gold. That's what I was looking for.
Stop the fight.
Just for the West Tigers, I'll just go off on a different tangent. If I'm looking to bring somebody into the club, I don't know if Pangai Junior is the right mix. I'm looking at Dale Finucane.
Agreed.
If he's available.
Well, that's who the Broncos should be chasing, Pete. But the issue with Dale is, that Dale's management's asked for a long-term deal. Initially it was 4 years, and it was on big money. Now, Dale's, I don't know how old Dale is, early 30s maybe, and I think clubs were concerned about giving him that long. I think his demands are now 3 years, and the money's slightly come down. If he was to go to 2 years, and the Broncos had signed him in a heartbeat,
Snap him up.
in an absolute heartbeat,
Yeah.
but 3 years, they're just worried that Dale's going to hit the wall at some point because he plays the game so hard. And he's such a physical player, and he almost looks like he's.
But what he
But off the field is amazing.
What he brings on the field as well. The West Tigers, to me, have too many players that you can't trust on a week-to-week basis. Dale Finucane.
I agree with you.
Agree wholeheartedly. I'd do everything possible to try and get Jared Warrior-Hargraves out of the Roosters. You got to. They need to buy their culture because whatever they've got currently is broken. Absolutely broken.
Are we talking about the Broncos
Sorry,
or the Tigers now? I'm confused which club we're talking about.
Tigers.
Tigers, mate. Tigers.
Okay, Tigers, right. Yeah. I don't know if Pangai Junior is the right bloke for the Tigers. Madge doesn't seem like a cuddler to me. No. And I don't think he's going to give Tavita Pangai Junior a cuddle. He doesn't seem like the answer for the Tigers, but that's the situation the Tigers find themselves in, where they just got to take what they can.
They love him. They love him. Madge, from what I'm told, Madge loves Tavita Pangai.
Okay.
So,
well, I think there is a cuddle somewhere in Ricky Stewart. Maybe not say the other night.
He's a cuddler.
Now, Darren, we just had the journo segment. I don't think you were able to listen, but the journalists were saying that the Broncos board is to blame and needs to take responsibility for what's going on at the club. We see reports in the Courier Mail this morning that the players are revolting against coach Kevy Walters. Is it the board's fault that the club is in such a mess at the moment?
Well, look, I think what was, if you look at the last 6 to 9 months, it hasn't been ideal not having a CEO. Dave Donahue was the one that was selected, and we had to wait for him to come to the club. He's had a look under the bonnet since he's been there, and he's pretty keen on making some changes. So look, it's obviously not where we want the club to be, but we're letting Dave get on with the business and do what he thinks he needs to do there at the club, given that he's come from the Storm and he knows what football structures or successful ones look like. So, look, there's going to be a little bit of movement, with staff and players, and probably the next 4 to 6 weeks is still going to be a bit of a rough ride.
So when he looked under the bonnet, did he see an engine?
Well, if you go by results, obviously the engine's not on and it's not humming. So. Yeah, look, it's obviously a big talking point right now. The Broncos don't play again for a couple of weeks with the rep round, so I think the next couple of weeks, the commentary is going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tough times. We appreciate you always being willing to front up. Thank you very much, Darren. We appreciate it.
No worries.
I was a little bit shocked when I first read it this morning. All the dealings that I've had with Kevy have been great, obviously at origin level, but the players, from what I read, unhappy with the way that he's been communicating to the playing group and to individuals. So there's obviously communication is an issue. It's okay. These players are obviously walking out of the meetings not happy with the way he's been communicating with them. So, it's not a good start to his tenure, but he's one of the club legends there. So he's got 2 experienced coaches in Terry Madison and John Cartwright as his assistants, but it's not good. As they got a new CEO as well, Dave Donahue's come in. So no doubt they're putting the broom through the joint and they're starting afresh. So, these bombshell reports are alarming for the Broncos.
Yeah, when you lose the faith of the players, have you got anywhere to go?
No, in my experiences. But, like I said, he is a club legend there, and they are putting the broom through the joint. There's been a lot of players that have been told that they are not required at the club next year. And with that comes unrest. So it's very hard to keep players that are playing at the club for the next 12 months or the 24 months that they're there. Yeah. And the players that are asked to be moved on, they're probably not being as professional as they should be, and that's why that player unrest can evolve.